I'm Heyzeus, and in this video, I'm going to try and find out just how many cases we've opened up as a community. Now, this is something that's always fascinated me. I've always wondered just how many buckos we've paid to Valve to unbox our crappy mil-spec skins. Maybe no one else is interested, it could just be me, but I've always wanted to find out. But the difficulty has been in how, because Valve would have this information internally, but they don't release it. So we're left with a bit of a challenge in working out what happened. And there are ways you could guess. For example, you could add up the total number of cases that have been sold on the Steam community market, but there's a pretty big margin of error here. For example, maybe some of these cases have been sold to investors and are still sitting in inventories. Maybe some people opened up cases that they got dropped, therefore they didn't sell them. Maybe some of these cases were sold twice. There's a lot of stuff that could go wrong and make your number wrong. And similarly, you could add up the total number of a particular type of item and try and work something out based on that, but in all likelihood it's probably been distorted by trade-up contracts. So again, there's a pretty big margin of error. But there is one way that's much more reliable, and this is that if you know the exact number of knife skins floating around, well, because the only way to get a knife is from a case, and once you've got that knife, it's not going anywhere. Even if you pull a fodder and get your inventory banned, there's still going to be a knife there. Well, we can use that number to work out the number of cases that have been opened, because it's always a 1 in 384 chance of unboxing a knife. So if you know the number of knives in the game, well, the number of cases that have been opened is just going to be that, times by 384. Which is all good in theory, but it raises the question, how do you get that number? And for a long time, I wasn't really sure how to go about it, until a guy called Blizzard linked me to a Reddit thread about a website called CSGO Float. Now, CSGO Float itself is a site that lets you look up particular skins with particular floats and sticker combinations and go to the inventory of the person who owns them. Quite useful, I might say. But what interested me about this thread is that the owner of CSGO Float mentioned that he had over 500,000 knives registered on his database. So I reached out to him and asked if he had any more detailed information, and as it happened, he did. In fact, he had heaps of extra information and he very kindly passed it on to me. It's all the result of a pretty exhaustive effort to scan all the public inventories he could find, and it gives us a pretty reasonable figure for just how many knife skins there are in the game. Now, I've drawn up a couple of graphs here showing the numbers of each type of knife as well as the numbers of each type of glove. Gloves are actually just as relevant here as knives, I forget to mention them sometimes. And as you might expect, karambits and bayonets are the most common type of knife, and the Prisma knives are the least common. There's a pretty big difference, but you know, the bayonets and karambits are much older and the Prisma knives are much newer and only have a couple of cases. And if we add up all these knives and all these gloves, well, we've got a total of 633,723 items. That's the number that CSGO Float has managed to find and register on its database. So we can just do some simple maths at this point. 633,723 times by 384 is 243,349,623. There we go. There's our number of cases, which, assuming everyone paid $2.50 US to unbox them, well, that means Valve generated $608 million from these cases being opened, and assuming a quarter of that goes to skin designers, we don't know what their cut actually is, but I'm going to assume a quarter, well, that means skin designers have made $152 million from cases being unboxed, and that Valve has made $456 million. Now, running CSGO definitely wouldn't be cheap, it wouldn't be done on peanuts, but I bet you it's cost Valve a lot less than $456 million to run. I reckon Gaben has pocketed a pretty decent sum here. But anyway, at this point, I should actually address the disbelief I suspect some people are in at the huge numbers I've got on screen, because I know when a lot of people are faced with the question of how many cases have ever been unboxed, they often give guesses like 5 to 15 million cases as opposed to hundreds of millions. So I imagine some of these people are a bit surprised right now, and I want to contextualize this 243 million number a bit. So CSGO, for the last few years, has had over 10 million unique players per month. cases have existed for almost 6 years at this point. So to unbox a total of 240 million cases, well, in round terms, that's only about 5 cases per person per year, slightly less even. Now, that is keeping things quite simple. It's obviously a bit more complicated than that, but when you look at it in those terms, I think the number we've got here is pretty realistic. But interestingly, it does seem like the rate that we're opening cases at is dropping. For example, we've had 29 cases released through CSGO's history, so that means that there's been about 8.4 million of each case opened on average. But if we just isolate the Horizon knives, which are the knives in the 3 most recent cases, well, there's only been an average of 4 million of each of these cases opened, and even if you exclude the Prisma case because it's quite new, the number only increases to about 5 million cases each. And keep in mind, these have been some of the most spaced out case releases in the history of CSGO. So this does suggest that the golden age of people opening cases is definitely over. I'd guess that it peaked around 2015 and we're well past that point now. But on the other hand, we are still opening a fuckload of cases. I mean, 4 million might be less than 8 million, but let's be honest, that is still a lot of cases. That is still quite a bit of revenue going to Valve. And one final important thing to keep in mind about these numbers, they're actually minimums, because there's going to be knives on private profiles and knives on forgotten, possibly banned profiles that CSGO Float won't be able to find. We don't know how many, but I'd guess that something like 5 to 10% of the knives haven't been recorded. So the actual numbers are going to be even higher than what you can see here. So I guess you could say we like our cases. Anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, subscribe. Otherwise, trust the numbers, not your gut. I'm Heyzeus. Thanks for watching. See ya.